beforehand.
Oh.
So without further ado, the top of the hours, we would like to get the program going. And as always, I'd love to invite my lovely partner, Sarah, to introduce who she is. And then my turn, and then we're going to pass the baton to Dee Dee.
Sure. Yes. Hi, everybody. If you have been here for as long as we have been here, you heard me 170 times. But one more time today, I'm going to go short so that we have enough time for our guests. So Sarah M. I grew up in Cambodia, start out beautiful life in the farm. But when I graduated from high school, I attend college in the big city, away from home. And while I was in college, a horrible thing happened to Cambodia. And you probably remember, it's the killing fields. And I got stuck. I struggled through the system and got so sick, and I barely make it. But thank God he protected me. He saved my life. Not only that, he allowed me to escape safely out of the country, and that's why I'm here. So I'm beyond grateful, to say the least, that I got a chance to live to tell the story. And I wrote my book. My journey in the book is called How I Survived the Killing Field, and it's available on my website, sarahim.com. And I'm also going out to speak, to share the inspiration that come out from my story. So that's about it I want to say. And back to you, Lee.
Great. And if you want Sarah's book, you got to go to her website, sarahim.com. I'm going to do a little plug in. So my story is similar but different. I'm also a former refugee that left Vietnam in a hurry in 1979. The only difference is I was the minority. My family is Chinese. We're not Vietnamese, but my birth country is Vietnam. So I've got very shallow roots on either country, either culture. And I come to America as a teenager, 16 years old. So I felt very lost and not belong. So I have to fight with my identity for a longest time. The story here is, how do we get out? And that's why we recorded in the book. And we, for my case, I also have it under my TEDx talk. And both of the title are called I Did Not Miss the Boat. So you can go to my website if you want to get to know me a little better. It's leetran.com. You can purchase the book over on my website. I can do an autograph for you. But if you want it in a hurry, you can go to amazon.com and purchase it, or it's also available on the ebook on Kindle. So this month's theme is talking about, how do you build your beginning? How do you set your goal for January? How do you plan your life every single day as a new beginning? So our theme is evolving, about starting up. And Dee Dee has quite a story that we invite her to come to our platform and share with us. So Dee Dee, please tell us who really Dee Dee is. and why did you do what you do, and what is your mission that you want to accomplish?
Sure. Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I am very inspired by both of your stories, and it's been just a pleasure to connect with you and hear what you are about. So thank you for what you're doing, because it's very important work. I grew up on the prairie of South Dakota, and I still live here. I've lived in Wyoming for about 8 years. Otherwise, I've been in the middle part of America my whole life. Went to college here. Married my college sweetheart. We've been married now for almost 45 years. So I'm one of those long time marriages. Following my husband's career, though, I've kind of bopped around to different places, and each time it was rebuilding. Each time I got up and moved my daughters and me and him, and so lots of practice at rebuilding, you know.
Yeah.
So but probably the biggest rebuilding, the hardest rebuilding thing in my life came from loss. And I think most of us, when we rebuild, it's because we lost something. We lost a place. We lost, like with that pandemic, we had lots of loss last year. When I was 15 years old on the farm, we lost our new house. My parents had built a house, their dream house on the prairie. And a fire took everything. All we got out with was the clothes we wore because it was 5:30 in the morning. And mom came in and said, the house is on fire, get up and get out. And so you did. And 30 minutes later, there is no house.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so we had to rebuild from losing everything. But as hard as that was, the hardest one in my life was losing my mom, because I didn't think about losing her. I mean, I was 34 years old working at the South Dakota Department of Tourism. I had just gotten back from my first overseas trip promoting Mount Rushmore, you know, and we were even in the middle of remodeling a kitchen, which is crazy. I'll never do that again. But I was in that space of just returning from a trip, remodeling the kitchen, when the phone rings and it's my sister saying, Mom died. Whoa, I mean, it was a heart attack. There was no warning. And man, so then you do the thing that we tend to do here in America, which is we think we grieved, we think we healed, and we move on, right? Well, it took me 9 years to really heal. And the healing for me came by looking at some Christmas tree ornaments she made just before Christmas on the anniversary of her death, and seeing them as gifts of her life, and starting to think about, what would I say to her if she were still here? Because I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to say, thank you, Mom. I didn't get to apologize for being a rascal in high school. It was just, there's no mom. So I heard a little voice tell me to go downstairs to my computer. At that moment, I did. I listened to the little voice for a change, and my fingers went to the keyboard and wrote, Dear Mom. And I wrote my dead mom a letter. And it was insane. I didn't tell anybody I even did it, but I cried and my heart poured out onto the computer screen. And for the next 6, 7 months, I just kept writing letters to her about anything. Snow, birthdays, anniversaries, the dog, the kids, everything. And I found this way to connect with her. And it became a journey of remembering and celebrating and healing. And I didn't plan that journey. My work was in customer service and leadership. And all of a sudden I had this journey about my mom. And I was encouraged to publish the letter, so I did. And after I published that book, and we started talking to media about it, I realized what I had really done was found the lessons of my mother's life. In her loss, all the letters I wrote were like reflections, looking back at life with her, simple, ordinary things I had taken for granted, because most of us do take our moms for granted. And I found—
Or dad.
Yeah, dad, grandparents, we take people for granted. Yeah, we take the dog for granted. We just think everybody's going to be around forever, right?
We do.
Well, in that reflection about loss, I found her greatest gifts, which were her values. And I found them in her words and her actions and her traditions. And so I started talking about, I brought that into customer service training one day to a young high-tech group. And you could have heard a pin drop, because I said, these are the values that we get from our moms, our dads, and our grandparents. And they went, yeah. And I hadn't planned on even saying this, like open mouth and outcomes. You know, sometimes we do that. And so I knew I was onto something that was important. So those values are what ground us and help us rebuild our lives, I think.
What interesting is, listening to you, I felt like you already read my story in a sense, because it took me 40 years also to be able to heal, because the book that I wrote, I Did Not Miss the Boat, it's pretty much to honor my father. I felt like an unfinished business between me and him. He got 2 strokes within a month and was in the coma for 12 days. Before he reached 51 years old. I was in college. And all this year, like you said, you got life and you think you move on. You swept all your feeling under the rug and you don't have time to deal with it. And then out of a sudden your kid grown and then you have all the time and you find that that wound has not actually been addressed. It needs to get out. And for you crying in front of your computer, I cry in front of the computer as well for months that I could not pull the things that, you know, I have kept for so long. And now I'm actually pouring out, not to the book, to himself, but I'm actually publishing it to the whole world. And that's very vulnerable. That is very scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're pretty much naked.
Yeah, you kind of reveal everything to the world. I mean, not just the beautiful, but the ugly, the bad come along with the good.
What I did was I shared, and I called it Dear Mom because it was letters. I started God told me to write Dear Mom. So I did that, right? Okay. So I seem to go back to those memories were all about being on the farm.
Yeah.
Before the house burned down, that period.
Right.
And then to when I was a young mom. And I'm sure it's because she wasn't there very long when my kids were little, you know?
Right.
So, but what I found in that process was the gift of her life. And, you know, that it's funny because Mom never said, today I'm going to teach you about values. No.
No.
They live their value.
Yes. So if we look at our losses and reflect upon them, we find a lot of good stuff. And when I found, I remembered Mom one day, I got off the school bus. I think I was like in 3rd grade. I had some big, huge problem. And I ran in the house to tell her about it. She looked at me and she said, well, there's a silver lining in every cloud.
Yeah.
Really, Mom?
Beautiful.
I didn't know we were talking about clouds today. Thought we were talking about me and my big problem, you know? But looking back at all kinds of small things like that, I found the gold.
Yeah.
Because
and I think,
you know, is huge in life.
I think you are right in the essence of so many of us taking our parents for granted. And I think it's up to the age that we are feeling like, I wouldn't say that the end of life, but I mean, at the point that we reach to where we want to reconnecting with our roots, with our parents, and things make a lot of sense that we did not have time to contemplate before. And you actually, I think, you know, is a great value and lesson that we want to pass on, because I think in some sense we want to form our legacy, and that is the legacy that we all want to achieve, because we don't want to go in a sudden, like our moms or our dad did, and then, you know, let our kids to rediscover everything again.
Right. And that's, you know, after I wrote the letters and people started asking about, well, people started saying, how can I do this? And people in my book signings would have tears coming down their face. Like, I'm sure you had that. So you want to say, I didn't even know what I did. I just had written the letters and I knew that they were helping people. So then the sequel became about find your own values, which are symbolized by the pink flamingos. But the third part of this, I call the legacy. It's about passing that on to my grandkids, because that's all I care about, is that they have, I'd give them the values way before I would give them $1 million. They might argue with me about that. But I'd say,
well, they can spend $1 million and come back as empty-handed in a month. But if they have the value, they will pass on for generations. So
absolutely. So that's the legacy, and I too care about that very much. Yeah.
And your trade is you are speakers and an authors. Obviously, you have multiple books. So as a speaker, you help organizations to find the positivities and the optimism in their daily routine, or how does that work?
Well, you know, I've trained on customer service since 1987 when I worked at South Dakota Tourism. And I started doing my own thing in 1996. That's what I knew. So I started taking that into the world. And by then, you know, I think I had this influence of Mom without really knowing it. But what I've tried to do is say to organizations, We all exist because we have customers, we have clients, right?
Mhm.
And what is that experience that they hope to have with us? Well, if you had a choice between a negative experience or a positive experience, most people are going to choose the positive.
Yeah.
When you live optimism, when you believe that there is a silver lining in every cloud, that you can solve problems, that you can make things better, that you can rebuild, that you can fix, you're going to deliver great customer service, because a lot of it is about solving problems.
Mhm.
If you're the leader and you're optimistic, you're going to inspire people to come forward and do and be their best. And so for me, those values are like, it's like the core piece, the foundation. I call it the
Right.
compass of values. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to drag anything negative in the conversation, but with the climates that we in, with all the sickness, the COVID, the political unstable, and all this thing out there, so much hate energies, and so many of those people who are so readily anger from a conversation. How do you help them to reset that button and say, we are basic human being, we always love first? You know, how hard, how easy, or how hard is it to do that?
You know, for me, and when I share with people, I try to encourage them to look back at whatever they've encountered, whatever they've gone through, and realize that we all have loss. And loss can pile up in life.
Yeah.
If you don't learn the lesson from loss the first time, it will repeat the lesson.
Right.
So when we look and we learn, then we can change what we're doing. Maybe all we can do is accept what's going on, but even that is better than resisting and fighting and going
Right.
crazy. But that loss, when we spend some time with it, reflect on it, and find the meaning from it, we lessen the power of that negativity.
Mhm.
And we unleash the power of the positive. Yes, we can do that. So I tell people
Yeah.
to really get grounded and don't be afraid of looking and spending a little bit of time with that hard stuff.
Yeah.
There for a reason. It's a teacher, one of life's greatest teachers.
Right. And I think, making sense when you look at the loss and you try to understand what does that loss bring you? I mean, does it want to bring you all this like anger?
Mhm.
Does it make anything better if you are anger?
Yeah.
So it's a very good way to reflect on how to reset your button and re-begin your life
Right.
by saying that something that you just have to declutter, and some of
Mhm.
those feelings you're just gonna have to let it go.
Oh, I think so many people are into decluttering their space right now, and I need to do that.
We all need to
I'm a
do
work in
that.
progress, but I think you're right, because I think optimism is a mindset.
Yeah.
I think it's here and in your heart.
Hmm.
And we control that, but it's much easier sometimes in life to blame somebody else for whatever we got.
Right.
Yep. That's
And
right.
then poor me. And I don't wear a halo. And last week, the stuff that happened, I had my own little pity party, guys.
We all do. We all do.
But what I've learned is this, Lee and Sarah, I don't throw them as long as I used to, and I don't invite as many people as I used to.
Right.
I make it
And
smaller. It's more manageable now.
yeah, I think sometimes less is more, right? I mean,
Yes.
if the people or the situation does not bring you joy, you need to declutter that so you can have more room for the positivity and the optimism for your future.
I tell people that when you have somebody, a friend, a relative, whoever who's struggling, and you want to help them, that's great. But if you take that stuff on into your own world, you're going to
Yeah.
come down,
Right.
and that's unfair to anybody. So care and love,
Hmm.
but then take that deep breath and go, say a prayer for them, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
But we've got enough of our own stuff.
I think that sometimes we want to save the world, but we can't save the world unless we save ourselves first.
That's right. That's very, very true. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how does this pandemic affect you on what you do? Like,
Oh, I was really looking forward to 2020 because 2019 was a disaster for me.
Mhm.
I had fallen on ice here, and I had a hole in my head that was about this big. Took
Oh
27
my God.
stitches. Had a real serious concussion.
Ooh.
So my brain was messed up, and then I had 2 shoulder surgeries, so I couldn't use my arms. And I ended up the year with cancer on my face, so I couldn't talk. So I thought,
Oh, you have come a long way.
well, that was 2019. So I thought, okay, God, we're done with 2019. I'm ready for 2020, right? So here comes 2020, and I had a couple speaking gigs, and then boom, everything for me canceled professionally. Every gig. I had one training program that I built for a group in the outdoor recreation world out west, and that was it. And so for me, rebuilding is rebuilding using technology, rebuilding more with more connections, with trying to say, help.
Yeah. I think, you know, sometimes it is a blessing too, in a sense that it gives you more time to rest, to recoup.
Yes.
I know I fell down for a bike ride. I have 7 stitches on my forehead. That was my own stupidity. I didn't wear a helmet.
Yeah.
And it's 4.5 years later, I still numb. On half of my face is still numb.
Yeah.
And I think that is sometimes we are rushing into so much thing that once we think we recover, we just want to rush into the midst of thing and pick things back up. But I think this pandemic, it is a tragic for a lot of people who lose their lives. You know, over 300,000 people that have an empty chair on their Christmas table on their with their loved one. But
Right.
for many of us, it is actually, I think it's a gift of time that we didn't ask for, but we get that bonus. That's how I met Sarah, and that's how, you know, this platform have begun.
Yeah.
So it is a way that God have sort of like creating a space that where we should be taking advantage when we could.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the time that we can be creative. We can do things differently. So we learn to be on the virtual conversation right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think looking at the hard stuff that you went through and reflecting on the pandemic, reflecting on I think in terms of loss,
Yeah.
because I have stood in front of many audiences talking about loss, and people have loss everywhere. That's what this whole last year is about, you know, loss of job, income, place, family members,
Relationship,
friends.
family. Yeah.
It's huge, and that's hard. So to look at that and find some little silver lining, like the time, like the ability to have more creativity time,
Right.
the time to, you know, whatever it is. And even
look at us.
Yes.
We are growing. We
Yes.
are so savvy. We are doing Zoom live now.
Yes.
I wouldn't think that I could do that a year ago.
No. I had never done it until a year ago next month.
Right. So now you are giving virtual presentation.
Yeah. Well, just starting to, like I said, I'm getting my new camera and getting towards it. And I've done one training program. But yeah, and another thing my mom said that I thought didn't make sense when I was a kid, but she said, count your blessings.
Yeah.
And you know, that's an old phrase from a song called White Christmas, and you know, or a movie called White Christmas. And it's really true.
Yeah.
So when we do that, and going back to optimism, one of the reasons to really try to get into that space is it's very positive energy. It is like fuel for the journey.
Right.
It helps you see things differently. It helps you find solutions. And mom taught it in this very practical way. You know, it's like I used to sew as a little girl. Mom, we had to make all of our clothes, right? So when you sew something and the seam isn't right, you have to take it out and fix it. Right? So mom taught us to solve problems. I think that's the core piece of optimism. Yeah. That there is a silver lining because you know how to solve a problem. And that's critical. So if we just believe that we can, believe that there is a silver lining and that we can find it, that's what I want my grandkids to know more than anything else in life. Believe that you can.
Absolutely. I think, you know, for many people who might not have gone through like really hardship or lost somebody who's really dear to them in a sudden, like unexpectedly, I'm sure everybody has a frame of reference where the most difficult time in their lives.
Mhm.
And I think for the people who've been through trauma, like, you know, Sarah and you and me, we always look at that frame of reference. And for me, I have lived in refugee camp in a small space, stacking 10, 12 people. So now if I have a sofa, I said that's a blessing. I said that is the luxury that I didn't have in the refugee camp, or if I stay in Vietnam. So it's very, I mean, you can compare all you want, but if you compare what you've been through, and when my sibling and I always, when we get together, we always kidding around. It's like, we're refugee. We've been through the worst. So this is nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I
Oh,
think a frame of reference is very, very important, that where you want to put yourself. And if you
Oh,
want to pity patty,
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody said that, you know, you look forward because the most important is something ahead of us. But the only time that is good looking back is to look how far we have we came. So
How far we've come and what we've learned from it, I think.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Because if you don't learn from it, then what did it give you?
no,
But when it gives you appreciation for everything you have, I mean, when you lose your home, you
Yeah,
really
feeling
have
sorrow is not going to get you anywhere.
yeah. So I think finding the blessings and everything is just, it's
Right.
not a
I
naive way to be. I think it's a powerful way to be.
right. And it's not like say that you should not mourn,
No,
grief.
oh no.
You should respect that time, do it.
Mhm.
And I think because me and you, I think, you know, we didn't do it for so long. And when we write the book, that
Oh,
is the grieving time that we need to go through. And I felt so much better after I wrote the book, because I felt like all my burden has like been,
oh yeah.
you know, get out of my chest
Unleash.
and into
Yeah.
those pages.
Mhm.
So it is need to be happen.
Mhm.
But then once it's happened, then you should not linger around too long, because then you're going to lose yourself if you are
Oh,
lingering in the
sure.
same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one last question.
Uh-huh.
If you have an advice for our audience, how to create the self-care, self-practice,
Mhm.
in order to build a brand new optimism future, starting from today,
Mm.
from this month, what would be the most one or two things that they can take with them?
Oh man. Well, yeah, self-care is critical. I took that for granted also until my mother died.
Mm.
And I realized she died of a heart attack at age 62, as had her mother.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I have a strong family history of not making it past age 62. So I had a reason to say, I'm going to do something about my health. So I looked at my health and started changing things about what I ate and walking. And that's a great way also to help with stress. I also will say that being positive, choosing positive space,
Mm.
that mindset governs everything. As I heard a friend say one time, mindset comes before skill set.
Yep.
So if you can adjust your mind to believing that this matters, and with self-care, to see it not just as oh, I have to eat this,
I
I have to
know.
walk. Instead of that, see it as not just a responsibility, but an
Right.
awesome opportunity
Exactly.
to shape your life, to create what you want in life, and that I think, everybody can have all the tips you want for, eating this and doing this, but if you don't have a reason for doing it, and make the reason being that those you love, you want your own life to go on happily, you want to be as healthy as you can. And January is a great time to restart, but every day is a good day to restart.
Every hour, right? Let's start it from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's something about our body, the chemical in our body reacting very differently every time you have a bad emotion or a good emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And sometime, well, I think Sarah is going to have a healthcare thing tonight. So if
Oh,
you want to talk about how to take wellness, then, you make sure you check on, because I think Sarah posts something. I'm doing a little plug for you. um, I think it does affect our chemical. I mean, if you have a tense situation, your stomach, your heart start turning, and you start feel sour, and you start feel dizzy, and you start breathe heavily. But if you think of something joyful, you start feeling elated, lighting your lung expands. So it does make a difference in your body, in your chemical, in the chemical in your body. So it is very important to have that optimism in your pocket all the time.
I think optimism prevents you from being a victim, because
Yeah.
you're looking at what you can do,
Yeah.
what you can be, and otherwise you can easily blame your life, your health. I could blame my concussion. I could blame my shoulder surgery. I could blame my cancer
Right.
surgery. You know, it's like,
Look
no,
at you.
I
Within
could
a
do-
year,
yeah,
I could hardly tell that, you've got any health issue.
I look so normal, don't I?
But this is
That's so
a
hard.
great lesson to our, to people that you got to get off that chairs and move around to create some positive space
You do.
in your life.
And that's why I think hanging out with positive people, programs
Mhm.
like yours that are positive, that's what the world needs more of. And so inviting people into your space, guys, that's just a perfect thing for you to keep doing, because it's needed. It's very important.
I think, yeah, I mean, good news is hard to find, but we're going to try to produce that
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day over here.
yeah. You're doing a great job with it. Thanks.
Well, I want to thank you so much, and
Oh.
tell our audience how they can win your wonderful book, Dear Mom, and the other one is the
Yeah,
Flamingo.
well, this is the book of letters to my mom,
Okay,
and this is the sequel,
Pink Flamingo.
Find Your Pink Flamingos, which is because mom had a flock of these on the prairie farm in
Oh.
the 60s, which embarrassed me. After I found
Now
out,
you proudly
Yeah.
showcase it.
yeah, well, I just took her for granted. I didn't know what all I'd got from her, all of her gifts, right? So this is
Yeah.
the subtitle, Celebrating the Gifts of a Mom.
Oh,
And that's what my Facebook group does. We celebrate the gifts of a mom, those values.
wonderful.
If they just comment in your feed here, let's say by,
Or you can do it on your feet too.
okay, both, yeah.
And
'Cause
then
I'll-
you can give a certain date when you're going to do the
Sure.
drawing.
I'll figure that out. And
I would love to swap book with you. I'm going
Yeah,
to leave
well.
the spaces for the audience to win your book,
yes,
but I would love to send you my book, and I'd love to get your book. So,
we'll
we
do.
can swap.
That'd be an honor. So thank you very much. I believe that we have the power to make our journey great by living our values, by reflecting and finding them. I
Mhm.
don't think they always just come like on a silver platter to us. I think sometimes we have to dig around and see what happened to us, how we reacted, what we learned. And through all that, we find that we really did learn the good stuff in life. And if we hold on to that, I mean, I know we all need money. I know we all need, but the values really do make our journey great.
Right.
We have a power in here that's just amazing. So
Yeah.
Money is to sustain a part of your life, but you're not born to make money. I think money is not every single solution to your
Yeah.
problem. And I want to thank you for sharing with us your story, and more importantly, how to get our audience to be excited to start their new beginning in
Yeah.
January.
with optimism,
Optimism, yes.
Find your
Let's put that
optimism.
more in the pocket.
There you go. Yeah, that's the theme of my month for January for my Facebook group, Find Your Pink Flamingo. So it's find optimism. So we're doing that. You find it everywhere, and you live it. You find it and you live it.
Absolutely.